Hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's DIY. For today's project we'll be building the ever popular Adirondack chair. This project can be a little bit daunting at first, but I'm going to break it down to you step by step. So let's get started. The Adirondack chair has 30 parts. The first two are the side rails, which are curved to put a nice and comfortable contour into the seat. This is where 9 seat slats are attached onto. Next we have the 2 back brackets, which are also curved. This puts a nice contour and is where the 7 back slats are attached to. To support the chair we have 2 front and 2 back legs. Next, as a place to put your favorite beverage or book, is the large armrests. And these are supported by 2 pairs of brackets. And the chair is assembled with decking screws. So my friends wanted a pair of Adirondack chairs, and I wanted to learn how to build them, so we teamed up and spent some quality time woodworking outdoors. Ozzy helped to ward off vicious predators, like squirrels. So a number of the parts used to make these chairs require some pretty specific curves and angles. So to make this easier, I've created some templates. Now these templates are 1:1 scale and can be printed on regular computer paper. So print them out, cut them, tape them together, and then you're ready to trace them onto your boards. You can find the templates at my website, which is linked in the video description below, or you can go to jeffsdiy.com/Adirondack. So depending on what kind of print margins you have on your printer, these can impact how these templates are printed out. So double check that they're the proper length by measuring them and comparing them to the cut list. So lay your templates on your board and trace them. If you want to have a good idea of how to lay them out on the boards, there's a diagram that will show you the best way to lay these out. This entire project is built by 1x4s and 1x6s that you can find at your local big box hardware stores. I prefer to use cedar for outdoor projects because it stands up to the elements pretty well. Alternatively, you can use pine if you'd like to save some money. For the second step, you want to cut out all the curved pieces using a jigsaw or a bandsaw. The pieces we'll be cutting out are the side rails, the armrests, the back rails, 1 pair of the brackets. To avoid alignment issues, make sure that your boards are very close to the templates, especially in areas where other boards will be screwed onto them. Try using relief cuts to navigate curves. Use your table saw to make quick work of these straight cuts. Clear up any rough edges with an orbital sander. And this brings us to our table saw work. We'll be ripping and cross-cutting the legs and also quite a few of the seat slats, and then also tapering the back slats. 8 of the 9 seat slats can be cut from the same board, so set up your rip fence and cut 2 strips. For the 9th and final seat slat, you can just cross-cut a board to the proper length and then put it through this rip fence. Next, adjust your rip fence and cut the front legs, adjust again, and cut the back legs. To keep this video clear and concise, I won't be calling out specific dimensions. If you'd like to see those, see my website, linked in the video description. So the last pieces we're going to cut out are the 7 back slats. Now these are tapered, which gives it a much more professional look. You can contrast this with the non-tapered version. So the first step is to cross-cut them to length, and then we're going to be tapering them on a tapering jig. So I ran into the problem where the tapering jig was not long enough, so I had to make a little bit of an engineering feat. Took the tapering jig on a piece of plywood and used some Gorilla Tape to tape it together. Now, using that, with this additional piece of plywood as a fence, and push the whole thing through with ease. Which is important because they're doing this like 30 times, so. For safety purposes, enlist the help of a friend or use a roller stand. You don't want to be leaning over the blade when making these cuts. So we save the piece that we tapered and we tape it back on. So when we make the other cut, it has a reference point. As I was saying, when we taper each of these boards, we actually need to make 2 passes with the table saw, 1 on each side, flipping the board. Make sure you're flipping the board in the right direction. I recommend trying it with a scrap piece first. So the next 2 parts are going to be routing certain boards and sanding everything. So the routing is optional, and sanding is, I guess, optional if you enjoy splinters. Using a roundover bit on your router table will make the chair more comfortable by taking off sharp edges. Boards that we want to round over will be your seat slats on both sides, as well as your back slats on both sides. And also the armrests. You only need to route the surface that's facing up, so pay attention to if it's the left or the right armrest. Make a simple trammel using a thin strip of wood, a pin, and a pencil. Lay all of your back slats on a flat surface and space them about 1/4 inch apart. Then use the trammel to trace a light arc across the top. Then cut them out with your jigsaw. Finally, run them through your router table. The top part, the part you just cut, that part. Then avoid dogs jumping into ponds and do a lot of sanding. And you gotta give it up for Jen. She's doing a great job. For the next step, we'll be using a drill, an impact driver, and a bunch of screws to put the chair together. We'll first put together the seat. This will include 2 side rails, 9 of the seat slats, and the bottom back rail. So for this phase of the project, there's 2 key things to remember. Before you put in any screws, always pre-drill and use a countersink bit. And the second is, when you're putting in your screws, don't get too close to the edge because it'll cause cracking. Try to center your screws at least 1/4 inch from any edge. The first part of the seat assembly will include the back bottom rail and 1 of the seat slats. I like to put these both in first and make sure that it's perfectly square. Each board in this part of the assembly will require 2 screws on each side, for a total of 4. Using 1 screw on each side of the board makes the chair a little bit too wobbly. I've upgraded my templates so that the final seat slot here is flush with the bottom of the chair. A seat slat should be able to fit between your bottom back rail and your last seat slat. So make sure there's enough room so you don't have to go back and change things later. Next, space out the remaining seat slats. They should be about 1/4 inch apart. Then go on a pre-drill and drilling spree. The next step is to attach the 2 front legs. Use a flat surface and a couple clamps and screw them in. Now repeat this process for the back legs. If you don't want the screws to be showing, screw them from the inside out. Attach the two armrest supports with 2 screws each. Attach the armrest using 3 screws. Attach the armrests to the back legs using 1 screw each and put brackets underneath them. It's a good idea to use a level here. For the next step, we'll be cutting an angle into the back leg so that we can screw in the top rail. You'll know your angle is correct when the back slats are resting flushly on the top and bottom back rails. The angle should be about 75 degrees, but I'd start with a higher one and then trim it down to size. Then mark and cut your angle. Next, use 4 screws to secure the top rail, making sure that you don't go all the way through the wood. Now you can start attaching your back slats to your back rails. I like to start with the middle one, centering it, and then put the far left and far right ones on afterwards. Then you can fill in the remaining pieces. To keep your chair nice and sturdy, you'll want to use 2 screws at the top and 2 at the bottom for each back slat. As you're assembling, check your alignment. You want to make sure that you're keeping that nice, smooth arc at the top. Whew, almost there. Last step. All you have to do is add 1 coat of deck stain. Your color, your choice, all up to you. I went with a nice cedar. So I really had a lot of fun making this project. It was a blast. The chair came out great. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd encourage you to mash that subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Otherwise, Ozzy will get really, really sad. And if you want to make the chair for yourself and you want the 1-to-1 printable template, check out my website. There's a link right here and in the description below. So peace. See you next time.